lost to ignorance and confusion, 3 men arose from humble beginnings with a message of wisdom and hope for their troubled times. 3 men who would eventually change the very face of humanity. But they were not the droids we're looking for. So, here are some other guys.
It's Song Talk Radio with Michael, Neil, Phil, and the gang.
Here we go. Welcome to Song Talk Radio. This is episode 271. This is the show with songwriters talking to other songwriters about the craft of songwriting. We share tips, tools, and techniques, and together we all become better at writing songs. I'm your host, Neil Modi, and joined with me are the superfied members of the Song Talk Radio Action Team. We have French Onion Phil.
That's me. Very happy to be here, and I'm also very excited because we have a very special guest.
Yes, and returning to us once again after a hiatus of, a couple of weeks, we have Vegetable Soup Vanessa.
Yay, Vanessa's back.
Vanessa's back.
Welcome back, Vanessa.
Thank you. That is a great category, Neil, for making the letters with the soups. And then what would you do for Neil?
I don't have to because I'm hosting. So, and finally on the tech board we have Miso Micah.
Oh, that's
very
a good.
Love miso.
I'm very excited that Vanessa is back because I know we've had lots of people going, "Where's Vanessa? Where's Vanessa?"
Oh, thanks. To
explain
big
yourself.
Fan, big number one fan. No. Thank you, one listener that I have.
And of course, during the show, send in your comments and questions, and by all means, you'll have your questions tonight, I'm sure, to at Song Talk Radio on Twitter or Facebook, or feedback at songtalk.ca, and we will try our best to share them with the rest of the audience in as real time as we can.
Yes.
And please visit us at songtalk.ca to find out how you can be a guest on the show. I will get my vowels right for the rest of the evening.
Vowels are overrated.
All right. Speaking of vowels, Phil from the news desk.
From the news desk. We got to get like some of those old-timey news.
Yes.
Dateline Toronto. So last week we had our contest. We had the Rocket Man ticket contest.
And it took off.
And it was. And so on Wednesday, the winners and the Song Talk Radio gang met up. Unfortunately, Neil couldn't have been there, which is a drag.
I couldn't be there. But I did see the movie over the weekend, so...
But we all got together and we had some food beforehand, and then we were able to walk past the lineup to go right into the movie, which was
right. Because you have VIP passes.
That's right, which is the most important part, you know.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I need to get to the front.
Excuse me.
You're in my way.
Special. Please, please don't look at me.
Did you guys get to meet Elton or Bernie or?
No.
I was hoping.
Were they there?
No.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, they're gonna come to Toronto for the.
Well, they live in
Toronto. Biggest celebrities
They
there.
have a home here.
Yeah, they do.
That's true.
But we want to send out a big thank you to the folks at Paramount Pictures who teamed up with us, and it was great. And the winners were, now there was other people who sent in their contest entries. And if you didn't win, we are sorry. We wish everyone could have won, but we only had so many tickets. But we'll do some of this again.
Yeah, try again next time.
Yes. So we had Don Thompson and his lovely wife came in. Mike McInnes joined us. Runka Kiss was there. Sorry, I'm sure I screwed up your name, but she came all the way in from, I think it was Hamilton.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
And came out and had a great time. It was a really fun evening. I just had a blast. It was great meeting people, meeting listeners. It was
nice.
Yeah, I'd never been to a sneak preview before, so it's really exciting.
Well, they had like a neat thing at the beginning too, right?
Yeah,
What did they do at
that's
the beginning?
true. And you know what I learned? When you go to a sneak preview, there's no like commercials beforehand. It was right
there's no
into the
trailers and stuff.
movie.
Really?
It was so crazy.
Because we went on Sunday, there was like 20 minutes worth. I was like, get to the movie already.
I was sitting next to Michael and I said, are we getting right into it? Where are the commercials?
Because we're
He
special.
Said, he said, oh, not in a preview.
Of course, Mike would know that.
Yes.
Of course it would.
But there was also a men's chorus. They sang Rocket Man.
Yeah.
Before,
Oh, really?
Which was
Just
really
at
cool.
the beginning.
Oh, that's neat.
To start it off. It was
And
so
there
great.
was a nice intro by this nice lady from one of the radio stations. Was it 93 Boom?
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was
they
great.
would play some
and-
Elton John. Yeah, for sure.
And no, the guys, people at Paramount were just fantastic through the whole thing, and they came and brought
we enjoyed your
donuts.
donuts. Yeah.
They brought donuts, which means all our guests have to bring donuts now.
The bar
I
is
think.
set high.
Yes, that's right. And so that was very exciting. So again, if you sent in an entry and you didn't win, we're sorry, but there were some very nice comments along with the entries as well, which I thought was great.
We'll have more contests, so
Yes, we're definitely going to be doing some new stuff. I think we might be doing some cool stuff.
You guys can send in comments even if there's no contest, eh?
That's true. That's true, because you'll just make us happy. We also found out that the kind folks at feedspot.com have given us an award, being one of the top 20 songwriting podcasts on the internet.
Yay for us.
So thanks very much for that. And that's at feedspot.com. So you can go to a website and we can click on there. We've got a nice little badge on the sidebar, so you can take a look at that. And lots of other good, there's like Song Exploder and some other
Song Exploder's on that list.
good ones there.
Songwriting Jerker, what's that one called? Song Jerker?
Song Jerker, yes.
Song Jerker, yeah.
And also in the Toronto Star a couple of weeks ago, there was a great article by Darren Fung about how hard it is to make a living as a songwriter. One of his, in the modern streaming area.
Very.
One of his points was Canadian Songwriters Hall of Fame Eddie Schwartz reminisced that a song selling 1 million copies would net him about $45,000 US in mechanical royalties and a platinum record. A major music service pays an average of many zeros and 35 per stream, or about $35 per million streams. In other words, it was akin to reducing a reasonable middle-class living to the value of a pizza. So that's how different.
As much as everyone loves pizza, that just doesn't equate, does it? Like that's brutal.
Yeah. Now, of course, selling 1 million copies is like, I don't know how that compares to 1 million plays on the radio.
Well,
which would be
that is a different thing for sure. Yeah. Well, okay, on the radio or streaming.
Yeah, so I'll get them out.
You're saying streaming should be compared more to radio plays?
You're not paying for radio, though.
Yeah. Well, you're not paying directly, but I mean, advertisers pay.
Yeah.
And then they...
But you are paying for streaming as an alternative to paying for the purchasing of music.
Yeah, that's true, because you can actually... Yeah, because people would actually stream...
Because people don't purchase
you can stream for
anymore.
free if you're willing to
sit through the commercials. Yeah.
That, yes.
Yeah.
But most streaming services that I know of also don't. You can't select you can't select specific songs. You have to wait. You can select
if you do it for free.
If you do it for free and you go like,
it depends what device you're doing. Spotify on my phone I can't select, but Spotify on the desktop app I can select whatever I want.
Really?
On the desktop.
And that's on free?
That's for free. Yep. I can search. I can go through my playlist.
I have
whatever I want.
Spotify Premium.
Oh, right. I have the free version, and I listen to it at work on my desktop computer. So I don't know what it's like on the phone.
Yeah, on the phone it's a lot more restrictive.
But you can totally select and you just...
I mean, there's still lots of ads, and then Spotify has gotten more severe about the ads. Like they're running video ads now on the desktop. They're running more of them for sure than they used to.
Oh, okay, yeah, the premium doesn't have any
of course not.
ads, which is okay.
Which is nice for sure.
It's $10 a month, so that's $120 a year.
Yeah, that's Netflix.
So that does add up.
Yeah.
But then again, you know what I spend on? I'd probably spend $120 on music, buying CDs, but then I'd also listen to the radio.
Yeah,
all the time. So it's a great. We'll send out a link to that article. It's not too long, but it's very very interesting about how tough it is to make a living as a songwriter. So that's all the news we have.
Alrighty.
Right,
so if the listeners haven't gathered yet tonight, it is all in the family, including Vanessa.
Yes.
There's no guest per se. And tonight we're going to be talking about tips for anyone out there who's just starting to write songs. So we're going to get a little bit philosophical, a little bit theoretical, and hopefully inspirational.
But before we start out, we've already got an email.
Oh, good.
Dun, dun, dun.
It says, "Yay, Vanessa! So good to hear you back on the air, Vanessa. Phil's levels are peaking. His voice is a little bit distracted."
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
Cool.
That's Heather.
Oh, thanks, Heather.
Thanks, Heather.
Of course.
All right.
That's my
Okay, so
listener.
the first thing I want to get out of the park is can see that the term beginner songwriter is it varies from person to person, because of course we know people that are excellent musicians, for example, but they've never written a song or they've never written a lyric, and other people have a great way with words, but they don't know enough from enough sharp kind of thing, like they don't know the.
I was thinking maybe we could divide it so there's like one's people who have maybe always wanted to write a song but don't really do any kind of, they don't play an instrument right now, or they don't have any, and then there's people who have some musical background.
Also, let me set the stage. I do not write songs, so I will be playing the person who is the amateur songwriter.
Okay.
So speak to me as if you are speaking to a non-songwriter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and hopefully you've got lots of questions.
Yes, I made them.
Because as listeners know, Phil and I both have been songwriting for a long time, and even our tech person Mike told us before the show that he just started sort of this week, didn't you, Micah?
Yeah.
In some ways.
I mean,
what do you mean? Like
I don't write very often because it's very difficult for me to write lyrics more specifically. I'm not too bad with the music. Especially in certain styles, but lyrics are very hard for me.
But you play an instrument.
Yeah.
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 So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I want to start actually with Phil, and maybe you can think back, Phil, to when you first started writing songs. What was it that came to you really easily, and what was it that you had to sort of suffer through, or really you found difficult?
Well, I thought about writing music right from the very beginning. It was something I always thought I would do.
Yeah.
So I think lyrics were definitely always the challenge. I never wrote poetry or anything, and which is why I think I should be working with a lyricist like Elton John. Elton John never wrote, and
true enough.
and I think that's why he's been so successful. And actually, most of our great Canadian or great American songbook is actually written by. Composed like a composer and a lyricist. All the great standard jazz songs were not written by one person.
Yeah. Even if you look at like Broadway musicals and stuff like that. Like
or
performing the
all
songs
the all the jazz standards, they're usually written by a composer and a lyricist.
Okay.
So it was always tough. But being self-taught gave me. Being self-taught means you have to teach yourself.
Yeah.
And I think, maybe if I wasn't self-taught, I could have maybe been a little bit further along. There's different ways of being taught. You could go to there's being taught as playing a musical instrument.
Yes.
And then there's teaching being a songwriter. And those are two different skills.
Two different things, yeah. There's much more opportunity to be taught to play an instrument, to be a musician.
Yeah.
You can take piano lessons, guitar lessons, whatever, but the songwriting as an educational pedagogical discipline.
It's a very different thing.
It's a very different thing. Right?
I think there is more things now, but there certainly wasn't when I was young.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, I'm in that camp where I've been a musician much longer than I've been a songwriter as such, but even, when I was a teenager and started to learn how to play the piano, I've started with cover songs, but very quickly developed into writing my own instrumental music. So I wrote instrumental music for a long time, didn't care for lyrics, didn't care for singing or songs per se, even though I listened to a lot of songs on the radio, and I played in a band where we played songs, but I was the drummer in the band, I didn't write in the band. And then many, many years later, when I was an adult, I actually started writing songs with lyrics. And for myself, the biggest challenge I found at that point, at least when I look back on those first few songs that I wrote, they're kind of clunky, like maybe words don't fit as smoothly and nicely as they could have. Sometimes, especially for the very first things that I wrote, I wouldn't. I'd write these, elaborate melodies on my piano and think that anyone could sing it, but it wasn't necessarily that easy for anyone to sing it because there wasn't enough room to breathe. There wasn't, the melodies were too extravagant or something like that. So I really had to, simplify the approach if I'm with the intention of, okay, someone needs to sing this sort of thing. Because that's a whole different discipline. And like you say, Phil, it was all kind of self-taught. It's trial and error, and you get obsessive about little things. Yeah. Right. And it's like, okay, I'm going to concentrate on this for the next little while, the next few songs, and see where I land.
Yeah, songwriting is very much mental thing, you know?
Yeah, see, now you can go onto YouTube and have someone show you instead of just like you read in a book, okay, now this is the chord. Whereas like you can, have someone you just watch and then or you don't like their style, you watch another video. Like there's a lot more ways to learn, or like different ways of learning, or like not actually going to a lesson but having someone right there with you.
Yeah.
And as we learned from Rocket Man, the Elton John movie, that's how he started too. He would compose stuff on the piano, and then the writing partner didn't really write music. He only really wrote lyrics, and then they came together, and then it was great.
And the one thing they didn't really focus on the creative process between the two of them. It was really Bernie Taupin would hand over a sheet, and then the melody would just
apparently that's
appear.
how they actually work.
Really?
Yeah. There's actually if you have a Roku out there, Roku is like kind of like an Apple Television or a Chromecast type thing. It's a little box that allows you to watch things on online on your TV. And on the Roku channel, they actually have a classic albums documentary on the making of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road.
Oh, okay. I love that series. That's a
great series.
Yeah.
Goodbye Yellow Brick Road had so many hits on it. Holy crap, it had been in the Jets, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, I think a Candle in the Wind. We just had just tons and tons of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, it's it's a double album.
Yeah, okay, I didn't know that.
But yeah, just all the, he must have just milked that thing for years because, growing up, Elton John was always on the radio. One thing I'd like to talk about is, let's talk to people who do not play an instrument at all right now, but they've always kind of thought, I'd like to write a song.
Right.
So I had some thoughts about how you could go about that if you have no training. So if you have musical ideas, like tunes in your head, you can actually record them into your phone as a voice memo. As you walk around, or maybe like little bits of words if they come across. That's going to give you the raw material to write a song, because that's how songs start. But you'll probably need some kind of musical base to
because how would you know what it's going to sound like?
Yeah.
Or how the instrumental will sound?
Now, there are some people who basically do everything just with their voice.
Yeah.
Like James Brown wrote everything, but he just wrote it go to the guys in his band and say, okay, do this on the bass. Dum, 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 and
Michael Jackson, same thing. He would just sing all the parts to the instrumentalist and be like, do this.
Yeah. But most people can't do that.
Yeah.
So there's, a lot of people have a piano in their home where they grow up. I think one of the problems with the piano is I think it's a hard instrument to play. It's pretty complicated, I think.
That really depends. I mean, I started on piano, and I find guitar ridiculously complicated.
Well, I think just in terms of, because you can get a guitar, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. But if you get a guitar, you can just learn how to play like 4 open position chords, and that'll get you through like most of the songs.
Yeah, and same thing on the piano. If you just decide you're going to play on the white keys and you go through C, F, G, and A minor, then that'll get you.
Yeah, but I think it might. It's easier to play on the hands. I think. It would. I mean, if you feel easy on the piano, then definitely do it. But one issue I think that a lot of people do when they start off with a guitar is they have a really bad guitar. And if you have a bad guitar with like the steel strings and the strings are really far off the fretboard, it's very hard to play. And if it's very hard to play, you won't play it. So what? And this actually happened to our next door neighbor. Their son was playing guitar, and they broke a string, and they said, "Oh, can you fix this string?" So I came over, and it was like a really old, very more of a piece of furniture than an actual instrument. Guitar. And I said, you know what, you can go to Long McQuaid and just rent like a student guitar. Like Yamaha makes fantastic student guitars. And I think it was like $25 a month or something, maybe even less.
It's really cheap.
It's really
Long
cheap.
McQuaid is ridiculously cheap
at all.
And you can rent to own as well.
That's right.
Yeah, you can rent one for a while and then just buy the one that you rented.
And with Long McQuaid, I mean, there's lots of your local music stores will probably do this as well. But there's a Long McQuaid basically almost in every city in Canada right now.
I'd also like to also mention Steve's Music.
Yes,
I think
Steve's
they have
rental.
a few around the country. Like I know there's Montreal.
There's 3 of them.
There's a few.
Oh, okay.
3 of them.
Whatever.
But they're good,
That's where I got my rented to own the instrument that I played as a teenager.
Which is?
So I can vouch for this service. It is great. The drums.
The
That's
drums.
how
Oh.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, actually, related to that, I mean, I'll tell you a story just a few weeks ago.
Before you go there, I just wanted to make one thing about if you do rent an acoustic guitar and you're just starting out, start off with a nylon string guitar. Because a nylon string guitar is much easier to play,
on the fingers.
and you can get, especially if you're like you're very young and your hands are small, you can actually get a small student guitar, which will be easier to play. And if it's easier to play, you'll play it more.
Yeah.
And all you really need to know is the G chord, the C chord, the D chord, and the A minor chord, and that'll pretty well do you for whatever you want.
For a lot of stuff.
And it's just all open chords, and they're
Yeah.
So anyways,
And of course, if you go to piano, it does not have to be nylon.
that's true.
Chances are it won't be.
That's true. We're just playing the white keys.
Yeah. So a few weeks ago, my older brother, who was never into music, decided, like a few years ago, in fact, he decided he wanted to start learning how to play the guitar, and he got
Cool.
one of those PS3 Guitar Smith games, whatever they're called.
Oh, yeah.
And they actually teach
Rocksmith?
you Rocksmith. Sorry,
Rocksmith,
yeah. And then the game ships with a cheap Epiphone electric guitar, and you plug it in, and it sort of takes you through a bit by bit. So you learn how to play, Paint It Black and a couple of different songs. But the one thing he was trying to do was he had a YouTube video of basically a chord progression that was you're supposed to solo over it using the pentatonic scale. And he had trouble just trying to come up with melodies because like I'm coming up with, like I did a couple of YouTube videos, and they say, well, you can sort of go up and down the scale, just sort of skipping notes. You do the 1 and then the 3 and then the 2 and then the 4, and then you sort of alternate like that, but it doesn't sound very musical.
Yeah.
Right. And I was sort of demonstrating, and he sort of played the YouTube, and he said, what would you do? And I sort of played a little melody on the piano, just made something up.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, why does that sound much more musical than what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, and I had to think about it, and I'm like, okay, well, what's actually going on here? And I said to him, like you're in the E pentatonic scale, so you want to think about what's the E is the first note, and the B is the 5th note, and those are the 2 most important notes in that scale. So if you start a phrase, you think about melodies as a conversation where it's just like da 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 da, like it's just one, and then there's
Call
a reply,
response,
right? And if you're starting or ending one of those phrases on that first note of the scale or the 5th note of the scale, then it'll sound much more musical. And so he tried something like that, and he's like, oh my God, that actually works.
That actually works, yeah.
and it's like sometimes you just gotta sort of wrap your head around something, because it's not necessarily intuitive to a lot of people.
No, it's
even
not.
how to build a melody.
Yeah.
Yeah, music is a lot of theory behind it. It's not all just like, well, I'll just put this together. But then when you use the theory, it's like, oh, that's why it's like this, or that's why it works.
Yeah, and some people don't need the theory. They just hear it in their heads, and they can do it. I mean, they even demonstrated that in the Rocket Man movie, where Elton John just heard something on the thing, and he could
he was a child prodigy.
Which leads me to the other point about like Bernie Taupin would just hand him a sheet of lyrics, and it always work like 100%.
Yeah.
With
They always do that in movies. Like they get to a completed song really fast, and But I mean, nobody wants to hear them go, try 5 different bridges. But I want to get back to the people who don't even know what a scale is.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a lot of people.
Right.
So like you go along McQuaid, you want to get you also want to buy a tuner. They're $15.
Oh, yeah.
The most important thing you can actually have is a tuner, because there's nothing worse than an out-of-tune guitar, because it'll never sound good. And it's not hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I've heard that far too often. So you want to rent a cheap guitar, and I'd just say I think a guitar is an easier thing if you don't have any kind of musical theory. I think a guitar is probably the easiest thing for those 4 chords. They're just shapes, and you're not going to be able to play those chords very fast. It takes time to learn how to go between them, but you can actually just play a chord and then sing a melody, and then go to the next chord and continue on your melody that way. And that's a way of playing. And then I think the next thing, what I would do is find like a song that you like. It's usually called an easy guitar notation, and it's usually with those 4 open. They call them open position chords because most of the strings are open. and then learn how to play that song, because the best way of actually learning how to write songs is actually to pull other people's songs apart.
Yes, absolutely.
So when you learn how to play someone's songs, you can actually start thinking about, okay, well, how does that melody work? And I think that's a good place to start if you don't have any kind of musical knowledge at all. Because I think Rita, she's wanting to write a song, but she hasn't. I think she plays maybe a bit of piano, but
right.
A lot of people just want to think, gee, I'd like to write a song, or
how do I start?
Yeah. Now you could also try to find someone who is a better musician and then team up with them and then make use of their knowledge.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that, just starting off with those 4 chords.
I was going to say, someone who is more lyrical maybe and not as musical, can always work with someone like a producer who is musical, and and there's that kind of relationship that is constructive for making music.
Certainly collaboration. I mean, I always say this about collaboration. If you're going to collaborate, then collaborate with someone who has different strengths than you do.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're a strong lyricist, melody writer, then you can,
It's so much
with a beat producer.
Sorry, it's so much easier to riff off someone else.
Yeah.
Like we do in this show.
Yeah.
Like imagine trying to do this show
on your own. Yeah.
It's like
It'd be rather lonely.
You'd run out of things to say in like 5 minutes.
Well, you'd have to prepare.
Yeah.
Prepare a little more. Yeah. Yeah. Should we take a
no? Go ahead.
Okay. I mean, I think for the lyricists who, but I think we can also talk about the song as a whole, right? And say to someone that if you do have a deficit, so to speak, in one aspect of the songwriting process, whether the music side or the lyric side, then that's a good opportunity to learn something about that and try and fill that gap as much as you can, because a lot of people are stronger on one side or the other.
Yeah.
Right. There's very few people that are sort of equally adept at both.
Yeah. I mean, there's this idea that everyone wants to do everything themselves, and that's probably not the best way of doing it, because we're not all going to be Prince.
You have to learn to ask for help.
That is true.
If you need it.
Yes, it is. It is rather hard, but
it can be, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't we take a brief break?
Yeah.
And we'll be right back.
For those of you just joining us, you're listening to Song Talk Radio, streaming on songtalk.ca, and tonight we're talking about songwriting for beginners. Now, don't forget, we love to hear from you, even during the show, so tweet in your thoughts and your questions at Song Talk Radio, or send an email to feedback@songtalk.ca, and we will share your questions live on the show. Coming up on Song Talk Radio next week, June 11th, we have Richard Underhill. June 18th, the following weekend, we have neo, soul, jazz, and easy listening artist Robert Ball. And if you're in the Toronto area, please join us at our next Song Talk meetup on Thursday, June 20th, from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Transac Club. It's on Bathurst and Bloor, or like closer to Spadina on Bloor.
Yeah.
It's super cute. It's free to join on meetup.com and free to attend the meetup. Stop by songtalk.ca for the link to the meetup.
That's right. Richard Underhill is from the Shuffle Demons, who
that's right.
They were they had a few hits here in local, I think, in Canada.
Yeah, the Spadina Bus.
So that'll be a great show. He's
Isn't it Spadina?
It's Spadina, but they said Spadina. We said Spadina for so many years, and only recently I've heard Spadina.
What? I thought Spadina was wrong.
I heard Spadina was right.
I only mention it because it was mentioned last week.
What? That's what I was told. Spadina.
I've never heard Spadina before.
Yeah.
But if you look at the spelling, it looks like Spadina.
That's right.
I think it looks like
suppose.
Spadina.
Well, I guess it also looks like Spadina.
So what about you, Vanessa? What sort of questions come up in your mind if you're ever thinking about writing a song?
This is what I've been always wondering.
All right.
How do you generally start a song? Do you start with lyrics or music first, or both together? Because if I was going to sit down and write a song, I have no idea where I would start with.
So, as most things in music, the answer is it depends.
Okay, great.
Can I put some input on this one?
Yes.
I would just say, what did you think of first?
Yeah.
That's how if I think, like, usually when I think of a piece of music to make, I hear something or like in a song that I like or something, and I think, wow, I really like that. I'm going to take it and make it very slightly different, but not like an entire song. Like if I hear a kick drum rhythm or something like that, I really like that. I'm just going to make that the basis of this new piece, and then you go.
Well,
I think I lack that gene, but okay.
I think there's different ways of starting, and I think when you first start out, you're probably, you might sort of play your few chords that and then that might generate some ideas, or some people will actually start off with a poem maybe that they've actually written down. A great tip for just starting out is, and this actually does work really well, and it's actually a technique that some authors use to learn how to write. And what the author will do is they'll take their favorite book and they will type it out.
Type it out?
They will type it out.
The whole
Like
book?
The whole book,
thing?
from top to the bottom.
Okay.
Because when you do that, you actually start to understand how they do what they do and how they build character, because you're actually writing it out.
Yeah.
So what you can do is you can take your favorite song and use that as kind of a skeleton for the song that you're going to work on. So at first, maybe just you could even use that melody, but put your own words on it. And just to give yourself a skeleton to put some ideas on. So you take, Here Comes the Sun by George Harrison, maybe do that and write your own lyrics on top of that. And that kind of gives you a skeleton. You'll have a verse and a chorus and a bridge, and there'll be a structure there because you're sort of putting it on something that already exists. And then you can change the melody to something different. You could even play it on top of the same chords, or you can change the chords, maybe the same rhythm, but just choose different chords. So what you're doing is you're working from an existing skeleton, but one at a time you're replacing stuff to sort of make it your own.
Like using it as a template and then to guide you, and then kind of,
And kind of change things bit by bit until it becomes your own,
yours.
right? Yeah.
Because that's great, because at first, it's hard to know. There's so many different ways of doing something.
Yeah.
And, heck, we're still learning stuff about songwriting. We've been doing this 260...
writing for many, many years, but more recently I've been sort of adopting that kind of Nashville method of writing a song, which means you start with a title.
Yeah.
Right? So if an idea sort of occurs to you, then you've got to write something down, you've got to take a record of something and come up with a small phrase, whatever it may be, and then usually the next step after that is to attach a melody to it. So you sing something with that phrase, and you've all of a sudden you've got the hook of your song. And then when you can, get around to putting some chords or whatever underneath it, then you can develop that further. But the point is that it starts with a small piece, right? Like you're always hearing a finished song, but it always started with something, the germ of an idea that was then developed, right?
That's
so
true.
If you can, but the development of that is, even if you've got the idea for a song, you come up with the title, you come up with the hook. Okay, well now what do I do? Because now you're stuck, right? So I always recommend this keyword exercise where you take some associated ideas or words that are attached to that idea that you have, and you consult RhymeZone or some kind of rhyming dictionary. RhymeZone.com is pretty good for this. And you punch in each
or Rhyme Genie.
You punch in each of one of those keywords that you got and come up with a bunch of words that rhyme with it that are sort of related to your idea, right?
Can you go back? Can you give an example?
So I went through this process actually several years ago. There was an online webinar, I think it was off Facebook. Alex Forbes, I think, was the songwriter's name. She's from Nashville or Los Angeles or something like that. And she basically gave us this exercise. So think of something. So everyone in the webinar was asked to think of an idea. And I thought, well, there's this been philosophical idea been rummaging around in my brain lately, that it seems in life you always have to sort of do everything right. But if you make one sort of fatal mistake, then your life can be ruined. If you're a politician, you say the wrong thing, your career could be disrailed. If you get up in a car accident, your life can all of a sudden change very much, right? And so I came up with this phrase, one great mistake. Okay, that's the title for my song. That's the hook of my song.
Okay.
One great mistake, something else, right? And then I don't know if I went through the keyword exercise by that point, but then you could start thinking of words like maybe like accident, fatal, even life, right?
That are associated
with that idea, and then you find a bunch of words that rhyme with it. And then you can start sort of putting together some kind of a lyric. And then at the same time, if you're thinking of melodic ideas, then you kind of get the ball rolling. And then the music side of it, you either work with somebody else or you come up with your own chord progression to go with that. And there's the skeleton of a song, right?
I think another thing, if you're just starting out, is to accept that you're probably not going to write fantastic songs right out of the bat. Like you'll be very proud of it, but it takes a long time to actually, become a good songwriter.
Yeah, and we had our friend Alon Rodovinsky from way back when.
Oh yeah,
who I still work with now. He's in our band and everything, and he went through that exercise a few years ago where he decided to write a song every day.
Yeah.
For a year. So he wrote 365 songs.
Crazy.
Some of them were good, some of them were bad, some of them were but the point is to start and finish a song every day, right?
Yeah.
And then not just a snippet of a song, like a complete.
And then
complete
practice
song.
makes perfect.
Practice makes better.
Sorry,
Better.
practice improves.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if he looks back at songs from the first day versus like the 300th day, he can see like the difference or the improvement or, I picked up these skills. So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Something that I did when I was kind of decided to get very serious about writing songs, and I don't know if someone else told me, like most of my knowledge has come from other people telling me stuff, and I go,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's a good idea."
Right.
So if you're out there and you told me this, I'm sorry I haven't given you credit for it. So you want to take your favorite song and make it like a song, like maybe a song that has a really good melody or something that you really, really like. And you're going to take that song and you're going to listen to that song about 1,000,000 times. So you get a piece of paper, and it's really important that you write down all the lyrics. Not get them from the internet, but actually write them down. That's
Yes.
a very important part of the process, is you write them down. And then you're going to go through it and you're going to figure out the chords on top of it, where the chords change, and you mark it on top of that. Then you're going to go through the song super slow, and noticing how the melody goes through those chords. So you'll open up the first chord if it's a G, and then you'll sort of find what is the first note that they sing. Is that a third? Is that what note is that in comparison to the G? And then sort of see how that melody goes through the chords and how it lands on the next chord. And you do that for the whole song, and then you also figure out where the verse and the chorus is, and you pull this song apart, like basically to the bones. Mm-hmm. But what you're doing there is you're really taking the time to really understand the intricacies of how it actually works, like a watchmaker, not just going, wow, that sounds cool. You're going, okay, that sounds cool. Why does that sound cool?
Yeah.
What is that? What are those three notes that make you go, yeah, that's really neat. What is that? Mm-hmm. And so you might spend like a lot of time figuring out what that hook is in terms of where it sits on the chord, and does it come when the chord starts, or does it come when the chord ends, And you'll notice other little things, like when the singer starts singing. Does the singer start singing right on top of the chord change? Mm-hmm. Or does he sing a little bit after? And I realize that when I do stuff, I go chord, sing, 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 chord, sing, sing, sing. Not James Brown, James Taylor, who's a great songwriter. If you listen to his stuff, he is changing. Like he changes right on top of the chords, and sometimes
sings right on top of the chord.
And sometimes he even pushes the chord a bit, like he's like even before.
Yeah.
And so he's really relaxed in his delivery, but the songs never drag. Mm-hmm. And the reason he does that is because he's changing the melody like on top of the chord. Like he's almost pushing the chord, like he's almost changing it just before you would.
Yeah.
So,
which is pretty cool.
But the only reason I figured that out is because I pulled apart his song.
Yeah, and what you're really talking about there is focused listening, right? Because a song at
focused notating. I think notating is a big part.
and notating, of course, because writing it out is absolutely crucial. Because listening to it, you're gonna even if you do focus listen on just the rhythm or just the melody or just the lyric or just the chord changes, then if you don't write it down, you're gonna forget it by the end.
That's true.
Because you get to get distracted by something else. So you have to. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You do have to notate it all. But the point is that songs are comprised of all these kind of elements, and they're all moving through time.
Yeah.
Right? There's a melody, there's chords, there's lyric, there's all these things going on at once. So the only way to really understand it is to do what Phil's doing and pull it apart in its discrete pieces.
Yeah.
And figure out what's going on each level, and then put the whole thing back together.
Yeah. Now, at the end, you won't like the song as much as you did?
Yeah.
That's really
Perhaps
interesting.
not, yeah. Or you might even like it better because you appreciate
You
the craft
understand
that went
it
into
now.
it, you know?
I don't know. For me, I've always, I still like it, but I never like it quite as much in the same way.
Well, and the first thing you said was pick a song that you really like. Maybe you should pick a song that you don't like.
Or that
Well,
you
that's
like
true.
a bit but don't love.
Yeah, that you're kind of neutral with, and okay.
Or just that you recognize as good,
Yeah.
Yeah.
even though you don't like it.
Or just go with like the ones that everyone always says are the great songs, right? Like go to the James Taylors, go to the
that's true.
Beatles, go
Yeah.
to the Leonard Cohens,
Classics.
go to the ones that you may not be necessarily that familiar with, but that are worthy of study.
Yeah, I
other
think
words,
early
right?
Beatles, because they are kind of classical in their formulation, they're very standard songs. Like doing something by Arcade Fire might be a bit more of a challenge because it's a bit more free form, a little bit weird,
Yeah, unless that's something you were striving for, or that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to talk about, and I want to talk about this, Phil, because you had mentioned this on the show a number of years ago about art in general and the role of contrast.
Yes.
Because you have a graphic design sort of OCAD background.
Yeah.
And that's something that comes up in songwriting a lot, but I find sometimes songwriters don't give it its due attention,
Yeah.
where the delineations between verse and chorus are not that strong, or the bridge doesn't really pop out as something, or the hook doesn't really pop out as something different, right? So, and that's something we discuss on this show all the time. But that's a crucial thing in art, in music, in storytelling, in
Yes.
dance, in every kind of creative endeavor. Contrast is a big deal, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think you have to sort of sometimes at the beginning, as with most art forms, you have to actually kind of do things in an exaggerated way
Yeah.
to understand it, and then you can sort of pull it back. To sort of maybe do it with a bit more subtlety.
With a bit more subtlety, yeah.
But
Yeah.
Do you have
Very true. Any more
Yes,
questions you have,
the
Vanessa?
other thing I always wanted to know about songwriting, because I cannot write songs. So
no, no, you don't know that.
no, I think I do know that.
You can.
You can write a song.
Like when I was younger, I always tried to journal. I tried a few times to
Oh, yeah.
dear diary, and I could never do it. And I feel like that really also relates to songwriting, because in songwriting, people are always writing things down, and I just can't do it. I don't know, whatever. But how do you know when the song is finished? That's what I always like. I know you're gonna have some inkling, but
It's
do
a
you
good question.
know? Because I feel like I'd be the person to keep not
keep
going.
know when to stop.
Yeah.
Again, it depends, I guess.
Just to a certain extent, I think one of the great things about the way things used to be done, back in the day when things used to be done, is you'd go into a studio and you'd have usually a weekend to record your stuff.
Right.
And at the end of the weekend, it was done. Because you ran out of money and you ran out of
Yeah,
time.
but if you go in the studio, you've already written the song, yeah?
Theoretically.
Presumably.
Presumably.
Back in the
Hopefully.
day, maybe not so. But these days, if you're going into a studio, you've got the song,
Yeah.
you got the arrangements worked out, you got everything down.
But that's how you know. But now the problem is people record at home.
Yeah.
And songs are never finished because you're going,
You don't
Well,
have
but
to.
I mean, I think Vanessa even means like even if you're not recording, you're just sitting down with
Yeah.
your guitar, with your piano, and you're trying to figure out what the song is. I don't know about finishing, but I will say this, that the danger, and this is a danger I've confronted as well, is when you come up with an idea, you're kind of married to it. Right,
Yes.
and you're resistant to change it. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
this is so good, and it's catchy, it's clever, it's
I don't need to
interesting.
change
I don't need to change anything, right? And usually it's the case where you probably should go back and re-examine something. As far as finishing, I mean, you can get feedback from other people, see if anything needs needs changing? I mean,
I think most people, when they start, actually finish too soon.
Okay.
And I think that's, a lot of times we see that at the meetup. I mean, these are great songs, but the difference, I think, between an amateur and a professional is an amateur will take a song and go, oh, it's pretty good. Mm-hmm. But an amateur will go through it, but a professional would go through it and make sure every line is perfect. Every line like scans perfectly, and every line sits perfectly.
Yeah, and that's the whole editing process. And and that being said,
and that's the polish
there's a polish to it. Yeah, and that being said, I mean, I've said this before, and many songwriters I've spoken to have said this before. The best songs I've written are the ones that I've written quickly, not necessarily in one sitting. Yeah. They're ones that I've been passionate about, and I've written a draft of it, and then I come back the next day or a couple of days later, and I've hack it to pieces and put it back together, or I just change a few things or finesse it and detail it more and get a little bit more refined, as it were, or a little more specific. Or there's some things that are bugging me about it, so I want to change the lyric here or a melody there or something. But they do come together within a short period of time, as opposed to the ones that you revisit like 3 years later, and then you don't care anymore.
I think the difference is, and there is a big difference because there's a difference between the inspiration, and the craft.
Yes.
And the inspiration is the actual original idea, and that's really exciting. And that's what I think a lot of people who aren't songwriters are really interested. They think that's really cool. Mm-hmm. That's actually the most easiest part, I think. What is really hard is taking that inspiration and then that idea, but then making it into a finished pot. Mm-hmm. And that's what takes the craft, and that's what takes the experimenting and the learning. That's the stuff that takes time. It's not the inspiration. The inspiration is just kind of comes. It's there and it's happening. Yeah. It's taking that idea and being able to take that idea to move it into something that is a true masterpiece, which takes time and effort. And you go through each line and you work. Like I think Leonard Cohen said he had like 100 verses for Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Before he found the right one.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is write some more. Is the other thing. But I actually, to be honest, Phil, I find the opposite is true for me. Like I can, if I start a song, if I got a good idea for a song, I can develop it. I can run with it. Yeah. But coming up with the ideas in the first place that are actually that actually get me moving in that direction, they're few and far between. Right. And I'm not bursting with ideas constantly that that would be a good song.
No, don't shatter the illusion.
yeah.
Well, like I'm surprised because you're pretty musical. I mean, you love music and you pay a lot of attention to music.
I can't do it. I don't know.
Now, have you ever tried though?
You can do it.
I have never tried because I truly believe, where would I even start? Well, now I know. Now I have some pointers, but like
will loan you.
Start with the title. I'm telling you.
Ukulele.
Okay.
Sometimes
it's like, where do you begin? Like, so much.
I am a pop music fan, and sometimes what I think is cool, for inspiration, is a saying or something in popular culture. Yeah. That can maybe spark a cool concept. Because one of the things, when I went to school, we went to the same school actually, I believe. We did.
Many years apart.
Really? What school did you go?
MIA at Fanshawe College.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, wait, but we didn't go to the same program.
We didn't go to the same program.
Oh, right.
We went to the same college.
I had a professor who, and one of the things he always said about songwriting and was, you have to start with a kick-ass concept. Am I allowed to say that?
You just did.
Yeah,
I did. I guess it doesn't.
It
doesn't matter anymore. You have to start with a kick-butt concept, and so one of the things that I thought about the other day when I was doing some writing was, I thought about that game that's like, if you could bring like 3 things to a desert island.
Right.
That was my concept starter, was what 30 things would you bring to a desert island? I wouldn't bring anything. I'd just bring you, babe.
Like okay.
That was my that was my kind of starter for the lyrical part of that song.
Oh, okay.
Right.
That's a great idea.
So that's something that you can try as well.
Yeah, and then that's what I was saying too. Like if you got an idea like that, then what's the phrase? What's the catchiest way to put that into 4 words?
What's the hook? Yeah, what's the hook?
What's the hook?
That's where I haven't gotten to yet with that one.
Right.
But
so once you get the hook and the title, then you're rolling with it, right? then you can develop the rest of it. But I think you're, the problem you're having, Vanessa, and it's a problem a lot of people have. It does take a certain degree of vulnerability. You do have to sort of do a little bit of soul searching to be able to write a song.
I will take a contrary.
Okay.
To write like a really good, deep song, then yes, you have to.
Yeah.
But I think if you're just starting out, and you want to write something, there's nothing wrong about writing a song about a sunny day or your cat or, like I wrote a song about my cat.
Right. Well, okay, maybe not. Well, certainly for a deep song, but in other words, it is a little bit like journaling. Like you do need to think about something and express whatever it is, your thoughts on that. Like if you're writing about your cat, what are you saying about your cat?
Yeah.
That's still, it's still a diary post to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
It's still your inner feelings, one way or the other, right? And a lot of people are scared of that.
Well, I'm the same way. I've never journaled. I know you're supposed to journal, but first thing you're supposed to do is when you wake up is write down.
Yeah.
But mine would just be pages of I have to pee, I have to pee, I have to pee.
I am starving right now.
Right.
I think something cool to remember is that you can write about anything, really.
Yes.
I mean, an artist I really like, and many of us know, Owl City, throwback to 2009 is when his first album came out, I think. And there's a song on that album called Dental Care. It's about going to the dentist and how he doesn't like going to the dentist. And it bops. It's a fun song. I love it. So
But you have to make like whatever you're writing about catchy.
Yep.
But I think
That's
that comes,
also true.
that comes with time, I think.
Okay.
It comes with time and practice. Yeah, it won't be
That's-
super catchy right off the bat. I mean,
Yeah.
catchy is a really hard thing to do, to be honest.
No.
That's a musical thing, and I think
Yeah.
I don't even know how to explain that.
Well, I think it's like,
it's something that
if
comes to you, I
if
think.
you want to learn how to paint portraits, I mean, at first you're going to do some pretty crude kind of rough things that sort of don't look like much of anything. But then over time you sort of learn how to work the medium, and this is a medium like any other.
I think if I was going to start, I'd also have not trouble with the rhyming, but coming up with something good to then make rhymes off of, if that makes sense. Because I feel like it'd be hard to make a song that doesn't rhyme, but that follows the correct beat and flows
It has a
together.
meter to it, yeah.
Whereas I think if your stuff is rhyming, it flows really well, and it kind of like,
It can,
you know.
But but the bigger point here is what we're saying is give yourself permission to do a bad first draft, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like you can say to yourself, this is my first song. It's
I'm
going
gonna
to be
do
bad.
it.
It's going to be crappy, right? I'm not going to share this with anybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. But I'm just going to do it, and then next week I'm going to do another one.
Yeah.
And
take what I
then
learned
before you
from
know it, when
this.
you look back, you'd be like, that was terrible. I look at songs I wrote 15 years ago. I'm like, the lyric is clunky, the melody is clunky, like, everything's clunky.
Yeah, well, because you
Still
get better.
clunky, but
Yeah, I mean, hopefully you do after you.
yeah,
do
and after a
something
while
wrong,
you do get better,
you know?
right?
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think it's just a time, and I think, and that's the best thing about songwriting is you never get to where you want to be.
Yeah, you're always learning
chasing
something.
it.
Yeah, you're always, because the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Don't know, yeah.
You know, and that's why you see people on YouTube who may not be they may actually be giving you lots of incorrect information because they think they know, but they don't know enough to know that they don't know anything.
Yeah. or the thing with those YouTube videos is that they're assuming you know a certain amount, and if you
That's
don't know
true.
if you don't know the basis of what they're talking about, then you're going to be lost, or you're going to be confused,
Yeah.
or something like that. So it's hard to find, like we're doing with the show, like it's hard to find a common denominator that's going to work for everybody.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast that, like, you'll see how I get there, but it was about organizing, and she was saying how, you can go into the library and get a ton of books on organizing and decluttering, but they're all written by people who love to organize and declutter. And she said most people that feel like they need to aren't in that same mind space.
Ah, yes.
And so she said, I am not someone who enjoys decluttering, but I know I need to. So then when you listen to her podcast, it's like, this makes sense to me because I'm in the same boat as you. I'm not like, it's not
right.
like she's some minimalist that's trying to tell you how to declutter your life. So with songwriting, you'd have to find someone on YouTube or someone who wrote a book who was like in the same, maybe was at the same level as you or something like that. Because if it's some pro trying to teach you, but you don't even understand what they're talking about, you're not going to get very far.
Very true.
And you'll probably get frustrated and,
Very true.
Yeah, sometimes the best teacher is not maybe the best musician for you when you're just starting out. Maybe
or
someone else
vice
is
versa.
just a little bit better,
Yeah.
Just
But
teaches you
I'll
much.
leave you with this, Vanessa. I mean, some of the questions you had, and I've heard this from other beginner songwriters too, is that should I do this and should I do that? And, like the pros out there was, there's no such thing as a shoulda. It's all what you want. I mean, there are certain rules when it comes to theory and stuff like that, but in general,
Yeah.
Okay, so
that's not really a question you should be asking. If
give
there's anything that you
yourself
should.
permission to just make something awful, but it's okay. You'll improve
Yes.
from it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just go with it with what
go
you
with
feel.
It doesn't have to be
And
long. It doesn't have to be. It just could be.
Just make a start.
Just make a start.
Okay.
Just start.
And
I
I
like
will. I have an extra ukulele I can give you, and ukuleles are so much fun and easy to
Yeah,
play.
actually, it's
So
true.
much fun.
Very easy to learn.
Who could hate a
So
ukulele?
much fun.
I could probably even play ukulele.
Yes, even
Everyone-
Neil.
I mean, come on.
Neil.
Okay, I believe that
Okay,
is about
thanks,
the time,
y'all.
all the time we have on the show. This has been Song Talk Radio. Special thanks to all our beginner songwriters out there, including Vanessa and Micah. Thanks for your thoughts, guys. Of
course.
And send us your impressions via Twitter at Song Talk Radio. Send us an email, feedback at songtalk.ca. On Facebook and YouTube at Song Talk Radio. Stop by the good old website, songtalk.ca. Subscribe to the Song Talk Radio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher.com, Spotify, Podcast Addict, many others, I'm certain. And don't forget to sign up for our free newsletter at songtalk.ca. It's shiny and new.
It is.
And you can find links to all the products, books, and web services we mentioned on the Song Talk Radio on our resources page at songtalk.ca. And we didn't mention, Vanessa actually did a post on our website a while back about things she learned on the show about songwriting
yes, that's a great one, too.
as a non-songwriter.
We'll
So
republish that.
True.
what's that?
We'll republish it.
We can republish that.
I'm
We'll send that
also
on our Twitter
working on
version.
another newsletter, but
Ooh, nice.
don't hold your breath because I'm.
Yeah, I know. I've been
it's in
working
the
on one for
process.
over a month now.
Yeah, I've been working on one for over a year.
Yeah,
so
you've been
it's
working
okay.
on for a long time, Phil. And if you're in the Toronto area, please join us at our next Song Talk meetup. It's on Thursday, June the 20th from 7 to 10 p.m. at the Transact Club. That's in the Annex area of Toronto. It's free to join on meetup.com and free to attend the meetup. Stop by songtalk.ca for the link. Thanks to Micah for handling the tech board thingy tonight.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Micah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And most of all, we'd like to thank you, our devoted listener. You can follow me, neilmodi.com. You can follow Phil.
At the Phil Emery on Twitter.
You can follow Vanessa.
Sunny_Vanessa.
And you can follow Micah.
At Jimmy Micah on Instagram.
Ooh,
Excellent.
Instagram.
And stop by the website, songtalk.ca, browse past shows, find out how you can be a guest, and keep on writing.
Yes. Yay.
Woo.
And thanks, Vanessa, for being here.
Thanks.
Yay.